This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Gutter and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, October 25th, 35 years ago, a fateful error ruined a team's chances to win the World Series, shocking a very heavily favored team. Without that error, the player involved in the error would not have been the Goldhorns and basically scorn of the public for many years until 2004 when the team he played for in 1986 actually won the World Series, and then they had the healing process of forgiving Bill Buckner. Well, of course, we're talking about the 1986 World Series. Well, we're talking about Buckner's error in general that happened on this day, on the 25th, but we need some context. It was the 1986 World Series, the Mets and the Red Sox. The Mets were just dominant, 108 wins. To put that into context, the Mets won 2 out of every 3. If you play every 3 baseball games, they won 2 of them. So if you have a 2 out of 3, then you get at least 108 wins, and that's a rare thing to do. So it was amazing. So of course this is huge. So the Mets won by over 20 games against their second place team was the Phillies. The Mets had a lot of infighting, but they still did pretty well. The 86 Mets were part of a series, a ESPN film series, by the way. Boston, on the other hand, won 95 games and beat the Yankees for second place in the AL East. They had some clutch play. But the man who was helping them out was Roger Clemens, who had both the Cy Young and the MVP awards to his name. I mean, the guy was freaking dominant. His first loss of the year was to the Blue Jays on July 2nd, must add. But here's the thing. The Mets and the Red Sox getting to the World Series was hard. I mean, okay, the Mets were 108 wins, and Boston was decent. But they both could have been replaced by their fellow LCSers, Houston and California, in one of the most ironic and iconic postseasons in history. And bear in mind, this is only an 18 playoff in 1986, whereas no, in 1986 there was only 4 teams involved, whereas now we got 10. Oh, my heart out. Yeah, I know. So anyway, the New York Mets took out the Boston Red Sox in the World Series. But yeah, the Mets and Astros played one of the grittiest NLCSs of all time. Lenny Dykstra hit a walk-off home run. Mike Scott was dominating the Mets with his scuff ball, as the Mets called it, being 2-0. The Mets had to face a tough Game 6 in Houston. And the Mets knew if they lost Game 6, they would have had to face Mike Scott in Game 7. And possibly Houston would have won the bid to the World Series. But it wasn't meant to be. Thankfully, common sense did occur today. And the Mets won, albeit in the 16th inning of that famous Game 6. It was amazing. Anyhow, Boston also faced adversity in the LCS. They were down 3-1 to the California Angels. Game 5 happened. The Angels had a 3-run lead headed into the top of the 9th. And unfortunately, after Gary Lucas, who rarely hit somebody, actually hit Rich Gedman, then the closer Donnie Moore was brought on to face Dave Henderson, who recently passed away. Dave Henderson cranked a 3-run home run to give Boston the lead. People forget that the Dave Henderson home run was not the winning run. California actually tied the game in the bottom of the 9th, and then Henderson won it with a sac fly in the 11th. Despite that, the Angels could have still won the game in their bottom half of the inning. But anyhow, the Red Sox went home to Fenway and crushed the Angels' hopes. The World Series started October 18th. Bruce Hurst versus Ron Darling. The Mets, unfortunately, got taken out 1-0. The only run was thanks to Tim Teufel committing the big error at second base by letting a ball go through his legs. How ironic. And that led Jim Rice to score 1-0. Now, of course, the Mets gave Tom Seaver a standing ovation because Tom Seaver, who was a Mets icon, actually was part of the Red Sox roster in 1986. He couldn't pitch because of an injury. Meanwhile, Game 2 happened the next night. Boston crushed the Mets and crushed Dwight Gooden, who was still at the top of his game, by a score of 9-3. Dave Henderson hit a home run. So the Boston was up 2-0 headed to Game 3. It was like shocking. The 108-win Mets were going to lose. The Mets allegedly had Davey Johnson say that take the day off, don't come to the ballpark, don't do anything at the ballpark. Well, some people might want to get batting practice. Anyway, the Mets had Bobby Ojeda, who was actually, ironically, a former Red Sox, to take on Oil Can Boyd. And Oil Can got a little rusty as the Mets won 7-1, thanks to a 4-run first inning. And Lenny Dextra's leadoff home run helped too. Game 4 saw the Mets beat Boston 6-2 as Ron Darling took on Al Nipper. Surprised that Al Nipper was a starter. I wonder if Tom Seaver was going to be there. But anyhow, the Mets scored 3 in the 4th to win 6-2, thanks to Lenny Dexter's home run. Game 5, Bruce Hurst took on Dwight Gooden. And again, the Mets couldn't win with Gooden on the mound. That was stupid. Anyway, the Red Sox won the game 4-2, and they felt very confident going to Game 6 at Shea. They won both games at Shea Stadium. So Saturday, October 25th, it was coming out. Boston had started off quickly in the first few innings. RBI hits from Dwight Evans and Marty Barrett. But in the 5th, Ray Knight hit an RBI single, and Danny Heap, who some people like, who I really hate, actually got a run off of a double play. Of course, that's not an RBI. In the 6th inning, the Mets had a chance to take the lead, but they failed. So anyway, Boston scored on a Ray Knight error as Marty Barrett made it 3-2. However, in the top of the 8th, things got a little crazy. With Henderson on second with 1 out, John McNamara pulled Roger Clemens back and pinch hit him. Remember, pitchers had to hit in national ballparks. So it was going to be Mike Greenwell. Kind of a greenhorn, if you will. Greenwell was decent, but rumors were that it should have been Don Baylor because he was on the bench. He was a good slugger. Greenwell struck out, and basically that was nothing. Worst part is Buckner had a fly ball to center field in the 8th inning with the bases loaded, so no runs there. It was said that Clemens was removed because of a blister on one of his fingers, but it's very disputed. Clemens said that his manager pulled him. Unfortunately, McNamara said that Clemens backed out of the game. And Clemens said, if I had a blister, that was going to hit my slider. Anyway, McNamara had Calvin Schiraldi come out of the bullpen for a 2-inning save. Well, that wasn't good. Schiraldi gave up a sac fly to Gary Carter to tie the game. Charles Strawberry had a chance to score the go-ahead run, but he flew out. The Red Sox and Mets both couldn't score in the 9th, so it's on to the 10th. And the second pitch from Rick Aguilera, Dave Henderson hit a home run to make it 4-3, which was amazing that Dave Henderson could do it again. So, anyway, after Spike Owens struck out, the pitcher spot was available, and they had some pinch hitting options, including Don Baylor. But for some strange reason, McNamara decided to send Schiraldi to the plate. Schiraldi struck out. Thankfully, though, Boston did score an insurance run, as it seemed. Wade Boggs hit a double, and Marty Barrett got an RBI single. And with Bo Buckner coming to the plate, McNamara could have used the bench and replaced him with a pinch hitter, and then Dave Stapleton would have come at first base. But Buckner did get hit by pitch. Rice would fly out. So yeah, so the underlying movement of the Red Sox in the postseason was that once they figured they were going to win, they decided to yank Bill Buckner from the lineup and put Dave Stapleton in for defense purposes, and the Red Sox didn't blow a lead. McNamara said that Buckner deserved to stay on the field for a potential celebration. I mean, it was sentimental, all that. Anyway, the Mets went out quickly. The Mets had 2 straight outs, so Boston was going to win anyway, despite McNamara's mix-ups and all that. With Carter now on deck and hitting, put in the batter's box, the words on the scoreboard said, "Congratulations, Boston Red Sox, world champions." Bud Carter singled. So because of the double switch, Aguilera was due up, and Davey Johnson decided to put Kevin Mitchell, who was a rookie, who would go on to win the 1989 MVP as a Giant, to pinch hit. Mitchell allegedly was not in the dugout. He thought the game was over. But Mitchell did rush to get his uniform back on and got a single. So first and second, with Ray Knight coming up to the plate, Girardi got 2 quick strikes, and it looked like game over. Unfortunately, he threw a bad pitch. Knight singles to left center, and Carter scored to make it 5-4. And Mitchell ended up on third base. Bob Stanley was then relieving Girardi, which should have been that way. And here comes Mookie Wilson, a very good hitter and a good speedster. Unfortunately, Bob Stanley, with the pitch at 2-2, threw a terrible breaking ball that bounced over the catcher Rich Gedman. Pass ball minute, the wild pitch made it 5-5, and Knight advanced to second. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. In fact, there were a lot of pitches because Mookie kept fouling them up. On the 10th pitch, Stanley got Wilson to put the ball in play, grab ball to first base. Unfortunately, Bill Buckner tried to field the ball, and it rolled between his legs and into right field. Knight scores. Mets won the game 6-5. So it was like terrible and all of that. In fact, it was the last time that a World Series game ended on air until Game 4 of the 2020 World Series, which ironically happened a year ago today. But the Dodgers did win the World Series. So it was ugly and all that. And a lot of people were basically thinking Bill Buckner had just cost Boston the World Series. In fact, he made a statement saying that, "I hope the ball doesn't go through my legs," before the start of the World Series. Well, he called a shot, unfortunately. A lot of people, including NL President, soon-to-be Commissioner Bart Giamatti, who was a lifelong Red Sox fan, said that McNamara screwed up. He was to blame because, after all, Buckner was taken out for Stapleton for defensive purposes. Well, a lot of blame was passed on. Boston and the Mets still had a Game 7 to do. But things were not what they seemed. Game 7 happened on October 27th, 1986. Now you can think, wait a minute, October 25th, 86 was when Buckner did that. Yes, but there was a terrible rainstorm in the New York area on the 26th, so they had to reschedule for the next night. Ron Darling was the scheduled starter. The Mets went with a 3-man rotation. So Darling was 1-1 in the World Series with a 0 ERA, which was weird. But the only run he gave up was an unearned run, so that doesn't count in your ERA. Oil Can Boyd was going to pitch Game 7. Unfortunately, but fortunately for Oil Can, the unscheduled day off meant that McNamara could reconsider his pitching matchup, and he decided to send Bruce Hurst to the mound. If the Red Sox had won Game 6, Hurst would have been the World Series MVP. McNamara decided to give Hurst the nod for Game 7. So Oil Can Boyd was upset, I think, because he was not going to pitch. He allegedly got drunk in the visitors' clubhouse. But Boston wasn't going down early. Dwight Evans and Rich Gedman hit back-to-back home runs, and Wade Boggs scored an RBI single. The Red Sox were up 3-0 in Game 7. So, okay, maybe it was just a little blip. So, anyway, the Mets couldn't do anything. After 3 innings, they only got 1 hit off of him. Hurst was cruising around through the first 5 innings. The Mets couldn't get anything off of him. Keith Hernandez hit an 2 RBI single to make it 3-2 in the 6th inning. Anyway, Gary Carter flew under Dwight Evans, who had to dive to try to catch it, and he failed. It was 3-3 into the 7th inning. McNamara shockingly decided to put Calvin Girardi on the mound in the 7th inning. Why, I don't know. But Ray Knight hit a leadoff home run off of him. Basically, it was game, set, match. The Mets went 8-5. Orozco got Barrett to swing and miss, and the Mets were the world champions. Ray Knight, thanks to his heroics in Game 6 and 7, actually ended up getting the World Series MVP. It was big because it could have went to Bruce Hurst, and it ensured that Bobby Richardson was the only player from the losing team to have the World Series MVP. Marty Barrett did get 13 hits, tying the World Series record for most hits in one of those things. Dave Henderson did pretty well. I mean, here's the funny thing. Well, yeah, it was huge. Anyway, a lot of things happened about the postscript. Now, the composite line score was 32-27 for the Mets. So the Mets and Red Sox would have to wait a long while before they got back to the World Series. The Mets had to wait till 2000 before the Yankees beat them, and the Red Sox waited till 2004. But thankfully for the Red Sox, they won that World Series in 4 against St. Louis, got the title, and then Boston started to finally forgive Bill Buckner for his error and all that. Boston subsequently would go on to win the 2007, 2013, and 2018 World Series without losing one. So the funny thing about the Red Sox is, here's the funny stat. Boston won their first 5 World Series in their first 5 World Series appearances. And then the Red Sox lost, I think, 3 or 4 in a row before finally winning the World Series in 2004. But here's the thing. They've won 4 straight World Series appearances. So that's kind of weird how the Red Sox are going on streaks and all that. The Mets, of course, would, in 2015, get back to the World Series, but they lost to the Royals. Davey Johnson would stay with the Mets till 1990. McNamara wasn't so lucky. He basically was done for. He would be fired at the All-Star break in 1988. And his successor, Joe Morgan, not to be confused with the second baseman from the Big Red Machine, came in and helped Boston come back to win the division. He didn't really do so well managing after that 1986 season. He died at the age of 88. Bill Buckner never did win his World Series ring. The Red Sox released him during the '87 season, and then would spend time with the California Angels. In '88, he signed with Kansas City, and he got a second stint with the Red Sox in 1990. But the Red Sox fans made him a massive scapegoat. However, because of their title win in 2004, they embraced him. Buckner would develop dementia and die in May 2019. ESPN named the 1986 World Series as the fourth greatest of all time. The only World Series behind it. The only three World Series that were ranked ahead of them were the 1924 World Series with the Senators and Giants, which was kind of weird. The 91 World Series and the 1975 World Series. So that's what was ahead of them. Great. So anyway, now Game 6 didn't actually end until 12:30 a.m., which actually forced the first cancellation of Saturday Night Live in history, which was shocking. The episode would have been hosted by Rosanna Arquette. It was actually recorded for the studio audience at 1:30 in the morning and aired November 8th with an apology from Ron Darling. And NBC no longer schedules first run SNL episodes on the same night as sports coverage. NBC's broadcast of Game 7 was huge. It's the highest rated single World Series game to date. It went up against the Redskins Giants Monday night game from 1986. And no, that was not the one that Lawrence Taylor hit Weisman. That was the year prior. So, in popular culture, it was huge. In the 2005 movie Fever Pitch, which I still have, or do I still have? Yeah, I still have Fever Pitch. It's the movie starring Jimmy Fallon opposite Drew Barrymore, and the fact is that Jimmy Fallon ends up watching Game 6 all over again after thinking that he's broken up with his girlfriend. And his friends are like, what the hell? But Jimmy Fallon said Stanley is to blame why Bill Buckner about that. He should not have thrown that wild pitch. And that to me is perfectly said. That if Bob Stanley didn't throw that wild pitch, I think Buckner might not have had that error. So anyway, the Curse of the Bambino started getting in everyone's heads till like 1990. There was even a movie called Game 6 starring Michael Keaton in 2005. So anyway, it was amazing, all that. The 1986 World Series, well, because of this, The Simpsons even made fun of it. When Darryl Strawberry replaces Homer in the starting lineup of the softball game, in the softball episodes, Bart and Lisa are upset, saying, "We want Homer and Homer. Darryl, 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 Darryl." Children, that's not nice. Mom, they're professional athletes. It rolls off their back. And Joe Strawberry is all that. Let's see. Anyway, yeah. Bill Buckner appeared in a career enthusiasm episodes, and Bill Buckner misses a catch of a Mookie Wilson signed baseball, but the episode concludes he redeems himself by catching a baby thrown back from a burning building. But let's not forget that what people probably would say, wait, you didn't talk about that fan in Game 6 of the 86 World Series. I'll get to that. So in Game 6, with Bill Buckner ironically being at bat, there was this man who was parachuting around Shea Stadium, and then he managed to somehow parachute into Shea Stadium, wearing a sign that said "Go Mets," and landed right near Buckner. No, Buckner wasn't at bat. Buckner was actually at first base, I think. Anyway, he was actually an actor and all that. He actually won a daytime Emmy for directing the 1996 TV circus special. Really? So yeah, so he landed right by Bill Buckner when he was at first base. So that was creepy. How ironic it was. That parachutist may have had something to do with Bill Buckner's problems. But we'll never know. Anyway, it was still a good game and a good series. But unfortunately, it had a hellish ending. But at least there was a fairy tale ending. But it took 18 fucking years. Anyway, I'm Jeff Don No Dude.